Vests! Vests are the best. Toss the sleeves, but keep the rest. Button the front, just like a cupboard. Your arms swing free, but your core stays covered. Hi, my name's Chris, and I just can't stop making things. Today I'm going to show you how I took an ordinary suit jacket, kind of like this, and turned it into a fantastic long waistcoat / vest, which is particularly handy if you want to dress up as a pirate. I actually found the footage for this tutorial on my computer, and it's been there for 9 years. So on the downside, it might not be quite as good quality, but on the upside, I have less gray hair. All right, let's turn a suit coat into a waistcoat. Okay, so you want to start by grabbing a cheap suit jacket from a thrift store, do some finger guns if you're super cool like me. My plan is to unfold the lapels so I can button the vest right up to my neck. I'm also going to have to cut away the collar because the underside of it is some other material. Of course, the sleeves are going to have to go, and I'm going to add a whole bunch of cool buttons up the front. So get your iron warmed up and do your best to get rid of that lapel crease. It takes a bit of work and you probably won't fully get rid of it, but do your best. Now we can start unpicking things. We'll start with the collar, and I'm just using a scalpel to cut along the stitching lines. There's actually a lot of different layers of fabric in there, which is kind of annoying, and we're going to get rid of some of those later. Next, let's get rid of the sleeves with the exact same process. Cutting the stitching with a scalpel to reveal some shoulder pads and other bits of fabric, which happens to be attached in other places, which is annoying, and requires a bit of figuring to get it out. I honestly don't remember where it was all attached to, but as you can see, I wasn't able to unpick it all and ended up cutting off some last stubborn bits with my scissors. Here's the stuff I took out. It looks like it probably went around the shoulders and then partway down the front of the vest for stabilization. And now you should have a waistcoat with no collar or sleeves. Grab some tailor's chalk, draw a neckline, cut along the neckline you thought you wanted, try it on, realize that's not the neckline you wanted, draw the neckline again, and cut it again, but this time the way you like it. Okay, in order to make the seam around the neck, I need to turn the vest inside out. However, there's a fake buttonhole not allowing me to do that. I ripped out the buttonhole and then turned the vest inside out. Grab some pins and pin the lining to the vest around the neck, and sew a seam along that edge. Cut little notches from the outside edge to just inside of the seam so that the seam will sit properly once it goes around your neck. Now you can awkwardly turn everything right side out again through one of the armholes. And back to the ironing board for some ironing. To keep that seam nice and crisp, you can sew over top of it right near the edge, and then it'll stay that way forever. I trimmed my armholes so they'd be just a little bit bigger, and also it gets rid of the previously sewn fabric. Don't forget the lining needs to be trimmed the same amount. Okay, for sewing the lining to the vest at the armholes, I'm going to make my own bias tape. I've got the sleeve I cut off earlier, and I'm cutting the strip at as much of a diagonal as I can get on that sleeve. Fold the strip in half and iron a crease down the center. Then open it up, fold the two edges to meet in the center, and iron that. Then fold the folded folds back over, and iron it one last time. Wasn't that easy and non-time consuming. With the vest right side out, pin the lining to the main material around the armholes. Hem one end of your bias tape at an angle, and then line up the edge of the bias tape with the edge of the armhole, right sides together, and sew along the edge following the line that you ironed into the bias tape. Overlap a little bit past where you started and cut your bias tape. Now when that gets folded over, the hemmed edge of the bias tape will cover the raw edge. And that's what we're going to do right now. Handy we have those fold lines ironed in already. So fold it over and pin it in place so it stays. Easy to say, a little more annoying to do. Sew over top of the folded edge of the bias tape. Again, a little bit of tricky sewing and hard to keep everything in place, but be patient and you'll get through. I certainly didn't do a perfect job, but since it's for a pirate costume, I think it's fine if it looks a little bit rough. Okay, with the armholes done, let's get rid of these buttons. I want to figure out a good spacing so that I use the two buttonholes that are already there, and it looks pretty good if I add one in between those and then use that spacing for the rest. Mark them off and start sewing buttonholes. Now you can put on your waistcoat and mark where all the buttons need to go. Remember that the button is going to sit near the outside edge of the slot, so make sure to mark it there and not in the center. Get out a needle, preferably one from a flower company, and sew on your buttons, which I apparently did not film. And your vest is done. Nice job. Cool, that's it I think. It's kind of a fun way to get a bit of a different wardrobe item. I'd say if you're not comfortable with sewing, this wouldn't be a good project to start on. The armholes, they're kind of tricky, so other than that, it's pretty easy, but if you haven't done much sewing, probably start with something easier. One thing I'd say is when you get your suit jacket, make sure to have a look at it, make sure that you can unfold the lapels and it actually is the right material there. And sometimes, depending how the lapel connects to the collar, it could be easier or harder. So have a look at that before you get your suit jacket. I love how you can use those lapels to make something that goes right up to your neck. Of course, you can also unbutton a few buttons or unbutton all the buttons, whatever you like. You can also shorten the overall length. I did that on this one. I also used a slightly larger suit jacket and overlapped it further so I could do it double-breasted. Okay, I think that's all I have to say. Actually, I've also been thinking of maybe doing some leatherworking tutorials like this sword holding thingamajig or the eye patch. Let me know if that would be interesting to you and I might whip some of those up. I think that's all. Thanks for watching. See ya. Tricky part is actually getting out of the cupboard because it's not made for humans. Even skinny humans.